has gone. Don't know how I feel about it, but it's happened and I gotta live with it. But what hasn't gone is the music knowledge, the music recommendations, the music elitism, the power, the brain that's so big, bigger than all you bitches. That's right, I'm here to talk about an album so good that you and your puny ears and tiny ear brains can't comprehend. My boy Vale-Smith is here again, spoiling us with the music. He has been dropping some really good music over the past few years. I always have to preface these reviews in case I get accused of anything, but he is a friend of mine. And that has nothing to do with my opinion on the music, okay? I know this guy in real life. We met. We saw each other in the London place, the London town, the London, England place. And we had a good time. We had a good time, bro. He stayed at my house as well. We had a good time, bro. But I would only ever talk about the music in a review, in a video, and praise it if I truly meant it. I'd like to think people believe that, but I just feel like I've got to say in case anyone's like, oh, you only gave it this because of this, and this because of this. But it's nothing to do with that. I'm just here to talk about music that I want to talk about. So here is the review. This album, man, it's fucking great. This is a very early 2022 release that got scheduled for the 7th. So I'm reviewing this before it's actually meant to have come out. But unfortunately, streaming services did mess it up. Well, fortunately, unfortunately, it depends on how you look at it. I mean, The Weeknd has got an album dropping on the same day this was meant to come out. So maybe it's a slight blessing in disguise, because at least he's managed to get some exposure early on in the year of 2022. And that will hopefully boost the success of the album. But yes, it was meant to come out later than it did. But I'm really glad it came out when it did, because I was really hyped for this. This has been an album I've been anticipating really highly in the year of 2022, or leading up to the year 2022, and it just didn't let me down. I really liked what he was doing before. I thought he was always on this like trajectory. I can never say that word. Trajectory. And it was just an incline, and he was slowly getting better with each album, slowly getting better with each release, because he did drop a few EPs and things, and it just always felt like he was just on the rise. The music was getting better, his ideas were getting more creative, and the sounds in the music just felt like it was becoming more and more like unique to what he was trying to do, unique to him as an artist. And I feel like everything's kind of come to this point, and it's exploded, and it's just gone even higher than I was anticipating. It's sounding so fresh. It was from the day Tethered to Us came out as a single. The moment I reacted to that track, I knew he was on his way to doing something that we haven't heard him do before, and I'm impressed. I would even say that maybe the album could utilize more of these really cool chopped vocal samples that are on this very track. I feel like they sound so rich, and the way the track just completely switches up towards the end in a way that you weren't expecting is so great. Every time I listen to it, I'm not quite anticipating it, and then it happens and I'm like, yeah! And he utilizes these transitional moments a lot more on the album as well. There's some really cool, nice little neat beat switches here and there as well. There's like, it's like some of the tracks go through phases and then they kind of like warp into something new. It's just always fresh and keeps you on your toes, and that's exactly what I look for in albums like this. And it just helps so much that the beats are always so fun and playful as well, and the instrumentals just sound so good. I love Ceramic Skies, that kicks off this album as well. I think like the two-step beat that's incorporated towards the end sounds bloody great. I don't know if he was trying to go for like that garage two-step feel, but that's certainly what I was hearing in the music. And then also like the melody, again, don't know if he was doing this. Maybe he was, but it's almost like it was subtly like speeding up, and yet you don't necessarily feel like you know if it is or not. And like as the track goes on, like the melody just feels like it's increasing in speed, and I can't tell if it's actually doing that or he's trying to trick the ear with it, and maybe you're sat there like wondering if it is. but you're just there like jogging along to it. But just on a general level, there's just so much going on. It's so busy, and I just like the way I'm always trying to figure out what's happening, how he's doing it exactly. Reminds me of like listening to some Igloo Ghost in that sense. They don't sound the same in terms of what they're approaching artistically, but I just feel like the sort of like confusion, the not knowing what's coming next, that feeling that you get listening to Igloo Ghost can be like, you know, described here as well, I think. And I do think there's something to be said in that this isn't really a style that's going to suit many people's tastes. I feel like someone could listen to this and think too much is happening, and this just sounds like there's way too many ideas coming together at once. And to be fair, I even think Vale-Smith himself would probably say, yeah, I can't really argue with that, because I certainly can't. I certainly can see why someone would hear this, but I just think the more you sit with it, there's just so much to pay attention to, and you actually start to realize how many great little melodies can come together in strange ways, and I think he's really good at doing that. One of my favourite tracks on the whole album, though, has got to be Hang Tight, and it's probably one I feel like wouldn't necessarily stick with people in the way it has with me, mostly because I think when I hear this track, I just immediately think of like an old like detective TV show from the 80s. Like, I listened to the track after I've said that, and just, could anyone else imagine like a futuristic like 80s take on a detective show? And could you also imagine this being the theme song for it? I don't know what it is, but the tune just gets me in that mindset. The bum 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 ba dum. I don't know. I'm just imagining like, you know, some of those really like old shows. What is it? Is it Columbus or something? And imagine like it being made in 2021 as a remake, or 2022. We're in a new year now. This would be like the theme song for that. I really love A Passage, despite the fact that it's so short, and it is more like, you know, a passage, but I feel like it's really earwormy, to be fair. And a track like Looper is the exact embodiment of what Kenny Beats hates. He would hate this shit if he heard it. I think the melodies on Revealing Light are just so bloody sharp. I think this track is probably one of the most infectious tracks in terms of like the melodies that he's coming up with here. I think this track is really, really fantastic. And is there a key change on Ace Ransom, my guys? Is that a key change? Could you even call it a key change? Because it almost feels like it's like a weird, warped version of what you'd expect a key change to sound like. But it sounds like one. And then the wobbles come through as well. It just sounds great. I have talked about Voracity in the Warehouse as being one of my favourite songs of 2021. I still stand by that as well. I think this track is just so brilliant in the way that it kind of like distorts and warps and kind of caves in on itself. I think it sounds bloody brilliant. And the punchy drums that come in, man, towards the end of this track, holy shit, the drums. I would possibly call it the best track on the album. I still haven't really decided if it's that or Setting Sun, which I hadn't heard before the album came out. But this track right here is such a sleeper hit, man. Oh my god, the really like old school, like old video game vibe that comes through with this track really feels like you're playing some kind of like what are those games called? You know, like games like Hades and Enter the Gungeon, where you're just kind of like playing these really like old school games where, you know, every time you hit a new level, you know, it feels different. There's literally a name for these games. What the hell are they called? Roguelike is the name. Any video game knowledge is useless when it comes to me, man. I'm not good with video games. But yeah, roguelike games really feel like you're just kind of like trapped in this anxiety-inducing world where the only thing you got to do is survive, and you're running through as fast as you possibly can. You're shooting all kinds of things, and this is what is soundtracking that feeling. Really love this track. I think this and many other tracks on this album, to be fair, are amongst some of the best songs he's ever made, and I really liked the album that he dropped in 2020 as well, so that is high praise. And even mostly surprising to me as well that this track comes so late in the album, and the last little leg of what he brings to the table so late on in the album is fantastic. This run of tracks towards the end is really good. You sometimes think with albums perhaps that have a long track list, maybe towards the end it loses steam. Maybe you think, oh, you could maybe cut out some of the tracks towards the end. That is a common thing you hear people say when, you know, you look at albums of this kind of like bulky track list length. But in the case of Vale-Smith, it's the opposite. I think towards the end, it just fires up and you kind of want it to keep going. Underthoughts, man. This might be the danciest track he's ever given us. Adore the rhythmic beat that he gives on this one, man. He delivers such an infectious tune here. And then the closing track, Hummingbird, which I think he said that wasn't actually meant to be the closing track because the streaming services messed that part of the album up too. But I actually like that it closes out the album. And to be honest, when I was listening to it, because I can't remember which one he said should be the last track. But when I listened to the album, I was sat there like, what else could have been the last track? This actually really works for a final track. So I'm kind of surprised that this wasn't originally the final track, to be honest. But yeah, love this one. I think it starts out really solemn. Really feels like the coldest track on the album. I feel like they're like the bell sort of sound that rings towards the end of the track is really strange as well. Quite ominous sounding. Reminds me of something that even Subtract would do, or maybe some Jamie XX as well. And to be fair, throughout this review, I haven't really name dropped many other artists, but I don't know, maybe to sell this album, I should give you more name drops because, you know, it might steer you towards listening to it if you've never listened to anything from Vale-Smith before. I don't know. But to be quite frank with you, I think Vale-Smith is standing on his own. He doesn't need all those name drops. He's putting out music that is of great quality and it should stand on its own and it deserves all the attention it could possibly get. So that is why I wanted to review this. That is why I wanted to give it the praise, because I genuinely think this is great and so good to have such an early album in 2022 that I can truly say is great. Early great albums like this don't come very often, but this is an early year release that is an 8 out of 10 from me. Really love this thing, and I just think Vale-Smith is killing it at the moment. I think he puts out really great music and you should be checking it out and supporting this guy on Bandcamp or on streaming services because it's really good. And thank you for watching this review. Hopefully you enjoyed what I was saying in the review. Hopefully you agree with what I said in the review. And if you haven't heard it, check it out. Come back to me. Let me know what you think. And I will be happy to hear your thoughts. But if you haven't subscribed already, you definitely should. You should watch all my videos because I give lots of recommendations as much as I possibly can all the time, and this is another one to add to the list. So thank you for watching as always. Have a good day and goodbye.